To respond to some comments, I wear a Brooklyn Nets shirt every time the Brooklyn Nets are playing, which is, 3 to 4 times a week. And so there's like 50-50 chance I'm wearing a Brooklyn Nets shirt. Hey everyone, it's Yue from the Strictly Broken YouTube channel. And today I'm doing another quick, easy tip for everyone so that they can, hopefully improve their Vanguard win rate, win some more games at locals or with your friends. It's great stuff. Today's lesson is just on guarding more in the early game. Rules are meant to be broken, and guarding in the early game is definitely not always right, particularly in premium, where getting damage is such a big deal for decks. They want that damage so they can do pop-off plays. And in standard, sometimes too, getting a damage is super important. Think of there's some grade 2s that when you ride them, you have to pay a CB and they get to do some crazy awesome stuff. So you don't want to guard that. You want to get at least a damage to be able to do your broken grade 2 ride effect. But as a good rule of thumb, guarding early can be very, very valuable because Vanguard is a heavily scaling game. Let me explain what that means. So typically in Vanguard, power boosting effects get way more out of hand as soon as decks hit grade 3. In standard V Premium now, that's even more apparent because force is a mechanic and the markers is a mechanic, and so you can easily see that just by riding up in V Premium, you're getting an extra 10k just off of being a force deck. And this, look at strides too. As soon as people stride, that's an immediate 15k boost to their Vanguard. When units get GB, they often get more power, and because you're doing more drives, once people hit grade 3, your chance of hitting triggers increases. Just power scales really hard as soon as people hit grade 3 in the game. And a lot of people don't realize that because this fact is true, guarding in the early game is way cheaper than guarding later. Again, don't extrapolate this rule into a general rule of thumb. Sometimes you need damage to do effects. But look at a grade 2 rush turn, for example. It's often something like 10-10-10, or maybe their last one is 20, so that they can go 10-10-20, which is a great grade 2 rush turn. On turns like that, if you guard those cards, for example, you're guarding the side lane, that's a 5k to throw down, then you're guarding the Vanguard, that's a 15k for no pass, and then depending on what they trigger, you're either guarding with another 15 or potentially a 25, or you just take it. And if you add that up, that's 55k shield to save 3 damage. Now you go to grade 3 and your opponent's Vanguard swinging 33 at you, and let's say that's a force 2 deck, so there's 33 with 2 crit, or they're just a Vanguard with passive crit, so 33 with 2 crit swinging at you. You can either PG, which takes up 2 cards, or you can give up shield, which is for no pass on a 33 on your 10 is what is that? You need 55. You need to hit 55, so you need 45k shield, and that's off one swing, right? That's the kind of scaling that exists in Vanguard. And had you guarded early, you can just, let's say you were giving up 4 or 5 cards to guard the early game. On that Vanguard swing alone, if you didn't have PG, you have to give up 4 or 5 cards to guard that swing. And some swings get even bigger with more drives and more risk to mitigate, so you have to give up more cards. Guarding early can be extremely cost effective in terms of the amount of cards you're giving up in a game. And furthermore, speaking of force 2, that run force 2, they wish you were at 3 damage. They wish you were at 4 damage. Because if you're at 3 or 4, for the rest of the game, they're basically forcing you to have to guard Vanguard, or have to guard whichever column had the force 2 marker on it. Any Vanguard with passive crit can create that kind of crit pressure. Because the Vanguard always threatens to hit a crit, you have to permanently PG the Vanguard or take an enormous risk by no guarding it if you were at 3, for example. And to easily solve those game states, just guard early. Just give up those 4 or 5 cards in the early game to save a lot of cards later on because the game scales. Furthermore, another point to guarding early, which is great against other more aggressive decks, as soon as some decks hit grade 3 turn, they suddenly can just push out 7, 8, 9, 10 attacks. That happens. And the best way to mitigate those decks is also to guard early. Because because you guarded early, you have 5 to 6 open, like you're at 1. So you have 5 to 6 damage that you can take to hit defensive triggers. Versus going to 3, now you only have 3 damage to take for defensive triggers. Giving yourself more breathing room in terms of the damage you're taking is a huge thing. It's a huge deal against aggressive decks that are multi-attacking a lot on first stride or first grade 3 turn. Because, you're increasing your chances by a lot, giving yourself more opportunities to take defensive damage. So all in all, against aggressive decks, against slower decks, against force decks, just guarding early is just a good tip all around, assuming you don't need this. Again, to reiterate, because Vanguard powers get so much more out of hand once grade 3 hits, the early game swings that you're guarding potentially can save you a lot more cards later when you do not have to guard those bigger swings after your opponent hits grade 3. So that's this video for all of you. Hope you like this series that we're doing. If you do like the series, definitely let us know in the comments. Hopefully everyone can, increase their win rate a little bit at locals, playing with their friends, playing bigger tournaments. And yeah, like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and it's Yue signing off. Peace.